Hello and welcome back. I was jumping around session during the breakout rooms and I saw that there was a very active exchange in all the rooms. I would like to ask Tamara to jump in and bring us some of the results from the Mentimeter.
Thank you, Francesco. I will now share my screen. We have 35 respondents in Mentimeter. Just 1 second. We have 36 respondents, just the 36 just arrived. We can see that most of the respondents, which doesn't reflect the total group of participants. Of course, most of the respondents are from Western and Central Europe. With 17 researchers, 8 public administration and policy makers, 4 entrepreneurs, and members of non-for-profit bodies and others. The expectations from the meeting are mostly to learn more on the challenges of UA, to learn more on the opportunities, to see example of urban agriculture, and to understand how can the person in question stimulate urban agriculture in his city. Have your local policies been adapted to enable urban agriculture? We got 17 answers, no, but it is needed, 15 yes, and 2 no, there is no need to. What are the targets of urban agricultural projects in your city? On the first place, on the first ranking, we have green spaces in the city, green spaces that surround the city, vacant lots, rooftops, school, public buildings, and abandoned buildings. In which way local authorities support urban agriculture in your city? We have different answers and different rankings, but most of them are no policies are developed, and reduced price for urban land, free access to product input, tax reduction, and you can see the grades on protection of existing cities and adaptation of existing regulation. And of course, there is awareness campaign of urban agriculture. And that would be all from the Mentimeter results.
Thanks a lot, Tamara. And well, it's now time to go and see what happened in different rooms. So I would suggest that the restitutor from the first room, rooftop agriculture, takes over the floor and tells us what has been discussed there.
Thanks a lot, Francesco. So in rooftop agriculture, we had 2 presentations from the Paris city and Barcelona. But first, Javier just reminded us all that urban agriculture is very transversal with different kind of systems. So even though we talked about rooftop agriculture, some things might be also pertinent to other kinds. Just a short sum up for the Paris experience. Paris has been promoting vegetation in urban agriculture since 2015 and started with an aerial mapping of potential rooftops available and identified 80 hectares of potential among the 400 hectares. And they did successive calls for projects to which all kinds of organisms answered, and juries took the best. And 146 sites were awarded for a total of 40 hectares. 50 sites for 10 hectares are already installed, and 2/3 of the sites are owned by Paris, but 1/3 of the sites of rooftop agriculture are owned by the private sector. And they envision once all sites are installed, it should bring 300 jobs, 200 tons per year, and feed 0.4% of the Paris population. For Barcelona, there are several policies in place and plans to improve the green of the city. And this year, 2021, is one about sustainable food. The trouble is that the city is compact. It has mountains and rivers in the sea, so it cannot extend geographically. And the main question is to maintain the existing urban and peri-urban agriculture with different incentives. There are already around 200 vegetable gardens and orchards, all kinds, not only rooftops, in the city with shared agriculture, with a main social and scholar objective. And there are new projects, for example, to harvest all the oranges of the orchards in the streets to produce marmalade. So there are several kinds of rooftops. And there are, for example, there was a competition in 2017 of rooftops with only 50% of them had urban agriculture, whereas now this year, 90% of them had urban agriculture. So it's really developing in place, and it's mainly goaded by the citizens themselves, which want to have urban agriculture there. So the trouble is that only self-consumption is allowed. So that means only social agriculture for the time being, no commercial possible. And those there are regulations to adapt to take it in turn. The debates turned about, so the questions were about how Paris persuaded the private sector to participate. And so the answer is that the private sector could create corporate gardens for employees, communicate about their image, participate in their social responsibility policies, and the fact that urban planning was changed and regulations have been adapted so that urban agriculture infrastructure allow you to go over the maximum height. And if the new buildings have more than 100 square meters, they have by law to have vegetation. And if more than 500 square meters, they have to have high vegetation or urban agriculture. And then the questions were about, also there was a question about the risk of birds flying into greenhouses. So which is quite interesting. I'm not sure, except in Germany, that the people have been asked this question. And also there was a question about the investment necessary to prepare the rooftops to ensure they are suitable for rooftop farming. So waterproofing, guardrails to have the safety for the kids and the people going on there. And also how this was done. And so the Paris city gave us a number of 140 euros per square meter to adapt the sites, so which might be interesting. And then there was a question about using the produces for the kitchen of the schools when it's on a school rooftop. But in all cities, there's not enough production to enable this production. And part of the kitchens are externalized, so there's no, it's not allowed to use produces coming from somewhere else. And also there was a question about how the crops produced are chosen. And this the answer is that urban farmers choose the production and choose what grows well, is easy, and of course can be sold. And this is it.
Well, thanks a lot, Agnes. And we can now move on to the second room, social, urban, and peri-urban agriculture. And I'll ask the restitutor to intervene. I think it's going to be Marty.
Yes, thanks, Francesco, and thanks to everyone in the room for such interesting presentations. We started with a presentation from Grenoble in urban farming in this city. The title of the presentation was Taking Up Commercial Urban Farming, and accounting not only for the city of Grenoble, but the whole metropolitan area, including 49 municipalities, so adding more complexity to the subject. The current policies that are being taken in this metropolitan area are driven by preserving agricultural land and supporting farmers' business through the creation of metropolitan farms, facilitation and funding policies to support also specific initiatives from individuals, and also the land acquisition to secure initiatives involving organic production through what is called environmental contracts. There were also mentioned some circular strategies already in place, like the use of organic waste to produce biogas production. And the next steps were pointing at institutionalizing a urban farming strategy for the metropolitan area. Following that presentation, we had a presentation from Bologna in Italy, presenting a specific experience that is part of a broad socioeconomic system called the Salus space, which started 5 years ago. And the base of the experience is collaborative governance. The first step that this strategy was taken was training, so training the local farmers with collaboration with the local university. And specific initiatives in this experience is, for example, a weekly farmers market, but also with the idea that encompassing this market through a creation of a hub that could be a space for collaboration among all the stakeholders that are involved in the experience. We really liked a specific sentence that was said during this presentation, that was the municipality has a central role of supporting and guiding this process with the co-design methodology. So with the community of the center of these initiatives, for example, with a monthly meeting with all the stakeholders that have like a permanent board for discussion and collaboration. After that, we had the presentation from Sofia, Bulgaria, on an initiative that aims to map the plot suitable for urban agriculture in this city. There is an ongoing process of implementing urban agriculture in the city with several initiatives, such as the creation of a manual for citizens and institutions that focus at different target groups and have include a variety of useful aspects for these different target groups. Policies of urban agriculture in Sofia are already part of local strategic planning. For example, the municipality is used as a potential node to create more community engagement in the city, and the specific experience of having a map of plots for suitable urban agriculture initiatives had a lot of plots detected, so effort had to be put in a specific plots in the municipality, totaling 64. And we saw that was a common term in all the presentations, with a strong support from volunteers. To finish with the presentation, we have a presentation from Berlin, Germany. Berlin is a really important city for urban gardening, so it's important also to make a distinction between urban gardening and urban agriculture in this case. The presenter highlighted the complexity of the network of different actors involved in the program, and the program aims at supporting existing new gardens and also pushing for new community gardens to be planted. To do so, there were different points raised, like determine the role of the community, embrace the diversity of the gardens. For example, there were 12 different types detected, and each of them has their own complexity. So a strategic plan is needed to tackle them, and also to activate the spatial potential, like this problem of acquiring land for new projects was raised in the presentation as well, and also design the base case specific supporting measures. As an output of the program, there was an action plan to guide the way for further measures and also ensure the motivation and reassurance of stakeholders. As the main lessons learned from the implementation of this plan is that the number of actors and number of stakeholder groups that we have is really challenging, that integration is more than a program, so further work must be done in this way, and that the lack of land that we may have in big cities like Berlin is also a potential problem. Then we also have a contribution from Turkey that raised the challenge that the main difficulty and the main barrier right now is the legal recognition of UA activities, that urban farmer is not right now recognized as a new potential job. So it's difficult to push for new initiatives that are driven by entrepreneurs. However, there are some local initiatives like a forum that was held some months ago, and there were some individual entrepreneurs that were interested in the subject of urban agriculture. So there is future work to be done in this way. After that, we asked, we used Multimeter as well to ask for 2 questions. The first one was, how do we measure the impacts of social, urban, and peri-urban agriculture initiatives? And we saw that the answer that got the most support was the number of social activities, for example, the events, workshops, or trainings that are being held per year, and also the number of participants that we have in this kind of trainings. The other question that we asked is which policy areas are relevant for social, urban, and peri-urban agriculture. And here the answers that got the most support were policies related to health and nutrition, policies related to environment and landscape protection, and also policies focused on education. And finally, just to finish, we had some questions raised in the chat, like some examples of local or regional processing and distribution of smaller scale deliveries. And here there was this discussion around the complexity to organize data in a network scale. We also talk about the impacts of the pandemic in the awareness of both consumers and producers of different types of urban agriculture. For example, there was a number that was provided by Bologna that the request for allotment grew by 70% in 2020. So that's quite significant, but also an issue was raised that we cannot plan how this will evolve in the future once we don't have this broad framework of pandemic. We raised again the issue of legal recognition for the products, for the farmers involved in urban agriculture. And then we finished with a small talk on the main barriers regarding the competition between uses that we may have in the cities, like food production, rainwater harvesting system, energy production. And this is currently under discussion in some cities, but potential solutions from that could be the cooperation between departments in the public institutions, and also the design of global strategies to make sure that we don't have a competition between what would be both beneficial uses for the cities. And with that, we ended the breakout room.
Well, thanks a lot, Marty. We'll move now to the third room that was on agricultural parks. And I'll leave the floor to Pietro that will receive the output from.
Thank you very much, Francesco. So in our session, they participate 4 different agricultural park experience, mainly located in the Mediterranean area. There were the agricultural park of Sabadell that described the different projects started in the city. One is related to business enterprise, and the other one was related to recreational activity. The municipality of Sabadell strayed the idea that the municipality is very important to foster the agricultural park in the city, try to connect basically the farmer or the agricultural system to the different initiative in the city. Then there was the municipality of Milan that mentioned about the importance of municipality to connect to the different agricultural parks that surround the city, and especially just foster the connection between the producer and the school canteen, in particular through a short supply chain. There was also the exposition of Thessaloniki, where they mostly were focused on social activity using the agricultural park to foster integration, inclusion, community engagement in the city. And then there was also the participation of the municipality of Cavallino Teporti, located close to the city of Venice, where they are stressed about the agricultural park as a strategy for land conservation, natural resource conservation. Basically, he described how the farm in the area are mainly familiar, from 2 or 3 hectares that are mainly connected to restaurant and selling the product with a premium price, and how they foster for the cultivation of local variety and the introduction of the other vegetable within the system like salicornia. As we can see from the presentation, we really understand the agricultural park is a strategy for long-term natural resource conservation around the city and to promote the sustainability of the food system. The municipality are fundamental to foster the development of the agricultural park, to create a common framework between the different stakeholders involved in the food system, to connect the farmer with specifically other activity in the city, like the school canteen, or in the case of Venice, with the tourism activity, and also to establish innovative politics involving the establishment of participatory living labs. There is very curious part where all the 3 out of 4 agricultural parks were involved also in the production of wine within the city with a social purpose. And there was finally an intervention between from the agricultural park from the municipality of Lisbon, that basically the municipality of Lisbon just fostered the agricultural park and fostered the creation of a relationship between the user of the agricultural park and the farmers that are using the land within the agricultural park. So no privatization of this area, but sort of creation of a common area where the people can go and enjoy and have other type of impact to respect the business one. And finally, basically what we have seen that the business model is based on the premium price, selling local varieties, mainly applying organic system and selling the product through a short supply chain, and then the social activity. They are mainly focused on community engagement, inclusion, integration, and creating of citizenship. We also provide 2 Multimeter questions that basically was asking about try to assess, this is basic on the experience of the different municipalities and the different people involved in the discussion, assess the main important elements of sustainability of urban agriculture initiative located in the agricultural park. More or less, we selected from the literature the most important impact that were more or less confirmed by all the people that participate to the survey. There are no elements that was more than the other one. The elements that we selected was hiring people with difficulty to access the regular food, the regular work market, donate food surpluses, organize public events, use of regional impact and organic pesticides, macerate and extract, reduce the environmental impact and conservation of the landscape. Skipping to the second question, this was related to how do you think that municipalities should support the agricultural park, and this is the main activity that the municipality should perform. The most important for the audience through the planning law, and also by moderating the process of the establishment of the agricultural park and the actor within the system.
Thanks a lot, Pietro. And we move now to the last room that was on vertical farming. And I remember Isabella was going to present the results. Yeah, please, Isabella.
Okay, thank you very much. So in the last room, we had 2 very interesting presentations, and then we had a very nice discussion. So I will try to summarize the highlights first from the presentation and then from the discussion. The first presentation was actually introducing the concept of controlled environment agriculture, because vertical farm is one of the system, and the reasons behind that. So one of the advantage of controlled environment agriculture is that you have almost full control on the growing condition, and this can allow to deal some research. In particular, during the first presentation, it has been close to Brussels. There is a cluster of controlled environmental agriculture. In this cluster, actually, there was already a meat market and a slaughterhouse in the past. And what has been done in 2018 was to enlarge this already existing site with urban agriculture infrastructures. And in particular, what they have there is operating aquaponic rooftop farm. So we have plant production in the greenhouse connected with a fish system. And here there is also some circularities, because the waste of the fish can be used for the as fertilizer for the plant production in the greenhouse. There is also a vertical farm for mushrooms in the basement. And then there is also another vertical farm for vegetable production. So in addition to food production, what is also important is that this system is carbon neutral, because some resource or heat flows are used from the meat market and the slaughterhouse that is there. And there is also a solar farm with an on-site electricity production. So actually what was highlighted also during the presentation are some of the advantages of having such system in the city, but also some of the disadvantages. For sure, one of the interesting aspects of controlled environmental agriculture is that it involves a lot of technologies, and in particular there is a high technical demand for designing, for operating, and also for maintaining this system. So this translates into job opportunities and new careers, for example in the field of mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, etc. So this is for sure something that is it's an added value. On the other hand, there is one struggle, which is the commercial viability of these systems, because on a city level, the system is still very small, and it's very difficult to compete with more, let's say, with large scale and more industrial production. And here the problem is that the end consumer, or let's say the citizen, cannot really see the value of this production, because the final product doesn't tell you where does it come from. So in this case, one of the solution, or one of the suggestion, and also the work of Farm Tech Society, who was giving the presentation, is try to first of all to collect data, and then to perform let's say environmental, social, and also economic evaluation to really make this addition, this added value visible to the end consumer. Of course, on the other side, there is another challenge, which is availability of data and the reluctancy of sharing data from, for example, companies. So also in this case, there should be some participatory agreements in order to facilitate that. But what is important is that everybody, the urban planners, the policymakers, and also the consumer would benefit from, let's say, this data collection and further analysis. In the second presentation, we had another topic, and it was how to maximize food production in city. And we had some example from the cities of Rotterdam, London, Berlin, Milan, and also other cities in US. And I think there was a very interesting point and consideration, because food planning was never part of the city planning in the past. However, with increasing urbanization, of course, food planning should be part of it. And vertical farming is just one of the production systems that you can have in a city. And together with all the others that we also saw in the other breakout rooms, they make the so-called green belts. So what was shown in the second presentation was a study mapping the self-sufficiencies of different cities in order to see how much of green belt would be needed in order to make this city more self-sufficient. And with this data, you can also see and visualize maybe some parts like brownfield sites or deserted area, and see how, and then translate them into, let's say, sites that are producing food, and see how this can positively influence the self-sufficiency at city level. So this was very, very briefly, but this was let's say, the main outcome from the two presentations. After that, we had some very interesting questions. I will not be able to mention them all, but the first one was, one of the question was how the municipalities are supporting these type of initiatives within the cities. And here we had an answer from the municipality of Lansingerland in the Netherlands. I think it's a nice example of a connection between the municipality and the entrepreneurs. So the municipality is supporting the entrepreneurs, not only economically speaking, but also facilitating permits and licenses, and also trying to put them in connection with, for example, research institutes, and in order to make use of the cutting edge technologies and also innovations that are developed in order to become more, let's say, environmentally and also economically efficient. Another question was how to connect citizens with this type of production systems, and how to understand their needs. And this was actually a question from Amsterdam. Because Amsterdam, like many other cities, is of course a multicultural city with different ethnicities, and sometimes it's very difficult to meet the demand of your consumers. In this case, the answer was that probably it is difficult to know it beforehand, but from the examples in US and from the example of Brussels, it has been shown that once these activities have started, then the citizens, of course, buy the product at this location, and the initiatives themselves were able to adjust according to the to consumer demands. And then maybe the last question, that was one of the last questions, which I think is important, is about decarbonization, because we know that these controlled environmental agriculture are very energy demanding. So they have a high energy use. And so the question was how the municipality takes these, let's say, high CO2 emissions into account in their calculation. In this case, we didn't have a full answer. And maybe we are not there yet. From the research perspective, there is a quantification, or there is an attempt in quantifying all the energy flows. So this can be for sure a starting point. So having this data, this would also allow to compare these systems to other cultivation systems that are less energy demanding. And then another point that came out was that there can be an opportunity for renewable energy providers within the cities. So partners that are on site and they are selling their, let's say, green energies. And this can, of course, so they can take advantage and they can take, let's say, their benefit from the food production within the city. And on the other side, the food production system and the city itself would take benefit from them. So I think this is more or less the summary from the fourth breakout room.
Well, thanks a lot, Isabella. Yeah, as I also wrote in the chat, we might have time for a few questions if there are from the audience, or any comment that you would like to bring to the assembly. Or if not any question arise, I can also give the floor back to Jacopo for telling us about the upcoming steps.
Yes, thanks, Francesco. Before going to the next steps, I just want to have a reflection. I mean, from what I heard from the 4 rooms, and I attended, I jumped a bit across the different rooms, and then I participated in the vertical farm one. I think there is a much more under the table than expected, in the sense that, of course, moving back commercial agriculture into an urban environment has a number of effects and involves a number of actors that are non-traditional actors in agriculture. The point on decarbonization, especially, it's very important to me, because we have to understand that urban, like commercial and in general, urban farming can improve cities, but can also introduce new issues to deal with, and the carbon accounting is one of these. And I hope that with this work and with all the e-dialogues we have and we are going to have, we will also be able to provide for some additional data so hardly requested from colleagues. Okay, now let me again thanks everybody, especially the EBRD and all the universities and cities that participated in this e-dialogue, and to the associations that made this e-dialogue possible, and of course to all the rapporteurs and other colleagues involved in each of the room, and of course to Francesco for his coordination. So thank you very much. Thanks again to everybody. We will have a short winter break for our e-dialogues, and we expect to resume with the next one on end of January, February. Winter break in the sense of holidays, and not in season. We have a number of e-dialogues that are being prepared. Now, the more we advance, the more we get into the nitty-gritty of commercial urban farming. We will explore technologies. We will explore how to downscale these technologies to allow more people to join in this business, how to export also this business, because if you remember from the first e-dialogue, the large majority of companies are still based in Europe and the Americas, North America, though we see a growing number of companies in Eastern Europe, the Balkans, let's say in the Balkans and former Soviet Union, and of course, Asia. So we really want to understand how this, between brackets, revolution could be further spread, and what could be the role of banks, investors, technology providers to make it possible and real. And of course, goes without saying, we will stress and try to understand more about the positive and negative impacts of these new agriculture forms. And let's try to gather as much as possible data and updated information, so that the report we will build with colleagues will be as comprehensive and open as possible. Colleagues, if there are questions, comments, please, the floor is yours. If not, I think we are all ready for lunch or snacks. Over to you. Okay, I see, Francesco, that we have exhausted our colleagues. I'm very happy to see that the large majority of you stayed for the entire almost 3 hours of work. Thank you very much. And as usual, we will be sharing all the documents and findings of this second e-dialogues with the entire list of registered and participants. Thank you very much, colleagues. Again, a big thank to Francesco and all the committee and the universities and the Horticulture Society for making this possible, and of course to colleagues Iride and Eri from EBRD for their constant and very active support. Colleagues, thank you very much. And Francesco, one final word on your end?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. I think it was very productive, and it allows us also to get an overview of what is happening in the different cities. So I hope to see all of you back in the next e-dialogue, and wish you a very good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.